Hello everyone, my name is Abhishek and welcome back to my channel. So first of all, thank you so much for watching my previous video on DevOps, that is introduction of DevOps. So today is day 2. If you haven't watched the day 1 video on DevOps, I would highly recommend you to go back and watch the day 1. So there is a DevOps 0 to Hero playlist which contains day 0, day 1 and all the other related videos, and the following videos will also be posted on the same playlist. Okay, so now what did we discuss in the previous class? Just to give you a quick recap for the people who have followed, we just learned what is DevOps, why DevOps, and how do we introduce ourselves in a DevOps interview. So this is the thing that we learned in our previous class, that is day 1. So now today we are at day 2 of DevOps, right? So what are we going to learn in day 2 is typically the software development lifecycle. So now you might ask me, like, the why everybody has to learn about software development lifecycle. So irrespective of the field that you are in, whether you are a developer, whether you are a tester, you are into software development or DevOps, everybody has to understand the concept of software development lifecycle. So the software development lifecycle in short is also called as SDLC. Okay, so people also call it as SDLC. So don't get confused if they call it as SDLC. So SDLC. So this is software development lifecycle. Now, what is software development lifecycle and why is it important for DevOps and all the other engineers to learn this? Okay, so now understand it in this way. We have, opted for a separate and complete day for learning software development lifecycle. That is because everybody has to understand software development lifecycle if you have to work in an organization. So when you work in an organization or when you work in the field of software or the IT industry, there is a standard that is followed by every organization, whether it's a startup, whether it's a MNC or it's a unicorn. Everybody follows a specific standards, and it is important for you to understand these standards to work in that organization. Now, what is software development lifecycle? It is a process used by the software industry, whether it's a process or whether it's again a culture. But it's a set of standard that is followed in the software industry to design, okay, develop, and to test. Okay, so to design, develop, and test, there is a standard that is followed, because whether you are working at Amazon, whether you're working at Flipkart, or whether you're working at Tesla, so everybody has to do this 3 steps, right? One is design, develop, test, and there are other phases also, but on a high level basis, these are the phases of your software development lifecycle. Now, what are these phases and what are included in each and every of these phases? Okay, but before we go there, what is the actual end goal of software development lifecycle? Okay, now I said you that there is a design phase, there is a development phase, and there is a testing phase. But ideally, what is the end goal? So the end goal is to deliver a high quality product, right? So you might ask me, what happens if I don't test the product? So if you don't test the product, end of the day, you made a design, you developed a design, and you delivered it to the customer. But who was testing this product, or who was testing this delivery? So that's why, to meet your customer expectations, or if you want to deliver a prompt application to your customer, you have to follow these phases. Like without design, you cannot develop, and once you develop without testing, your product will not be of high quality. So that's why you have to follow the standard to deliver high quality product. So this is a overall high level explanation of software development lifecycle. That is, software development lifecycle is a process that is followed by the industry to design, develop, and test high quality product. Okay, so this is about software development lifecycle. But now what we'll do is we'll try to deep dive and we'll try to see, we'll take an example organization, because we wanted to learn everything practically. So what I'll do is I'll show you with an example. Let's say we are working at Flipkart. Okay, or to avoid any such names, what I'll do is, let's say we are working at example.com. So example.com can be any e-commerce website. So let's say I'm working at example.com. So this can be anything. This can be Flipkart, this can be Amazon, or anything. So for just for our understanding, I just named it as example.com. So now at example.com, we deliver a e-commerce application. Okay, let's assume that we are building and developing a e-commerce application. So again, the process will be same for any organization, but just for understanding and reference, we are choosing example.com. So now in example.com, what usually happens is there are different phases before we deliver the application to the customer. Okay, so these phases are nothing but, so you have, let me try to do it in this way. Okay, so we can draw it by ourselves, that's fine. So we have, firstly we have a phase called planning. Okay, we'll deep dive into each of these things. Okay, don't worry. Then we have a phase called, so this is a standard thing, you can refer any book or you can go through any videos. So these steps are same because there are standards, right? These are called standards. So for standards, everybody has to follow the same standards. So these are standards that are approved and, yeah, followed by every organization. Design, and then we'll move to the phases like building. Okay, what is building? We are building a software, right? And then we move to phase called testing, and then we move to, once we test, what we'll do, we'll deploy. Okay, and then whenever we want a new feature, again we'll follow the same approach. So that's why this is a circle. Okay, what is the reason why I took a circle here? Like, I draw a circle here because everybody has to follow this circular approach for each and every feature that they are developing in their organization. Okay, let's say this ecommerce.com, okay, or this example.com, what they have decided is they want to start a new feature, or they want to support a new feature to the customers. Let's say, just for an example, okay, let's say they don't have kids section. Okay, understand this as a e-commerce merchant or cloth selling website, and this cloth selling website were not selling clothes for kids. Okay, till this point of time they were only selling for men, women. Okay, they don't have a kids section. So what the organization has decided was, on their research they found out that example.com can also get benefited from selling kids clothing. So they have decided, like, the organization has decided to launch a kids catalog. So for that, what happens is they have to go through this process. Okay, so this is the standard that is followed across the organizations, right? So let's try to understand each and every phase. Now, once we understand each and every phase, we'll also try to see where DevOps will come into this picture and how can DevOps improve this process, right? Because our end goal is to understand software development lifecycle and also understand this in the point of view of a DevOps engineer. Okay, because you have to, once you join an organization, you have to improve your organization's efficiency, right? Your end goal, like on every class that we are learning, only think in a point of view that whenever you are learning a new thing, let's say you're learning Terraform, let's say you're learning Ansible, your point of view or your way of thinking has to be in a way that, okay, now I am learning Terraform, how can I use this Terraform in the organization and how can I improve organization's efficiency? That should be your end goal, and you are the member who has to decide if your organization will require this or not. Let's say everybody in the DevOps community is promoting Terraform, but it might be that in your organization Terraform is not a right fit. Okay, so in such cases, end of the day it's your call, right? Because you are a DevOps engineer who is thinking of improving your organization's efficiency. So it's not your manager or it's not somebody else. As a DevOps engineer, you have to suggest them that, okay, Terraform might be a best tool in the community, but for our organization it's not a right fit. So think in that approach every time you work in, whether in the current organization or in your future organizations, always keep this approach. Okay, so firstly what happens is there is a high level design that is decided to launch a kids catalog. So who has decided this? Let's say the organization, the CTO or somebody has thought, they just given a thought that, okay, the kids catalog might be a good option. So now what happens is once they are done with that, so you will move to the planning phase. So what happens in the planning phase is you have to gather the requirements, right? So as a CTO can suggest you many things. but who has to do the planning and requirement? Okay, planning plus requirements. So who has to do the plannings and requirements gathering? It has to be your your core members, right? Whether it's your business analyst or your product owner, so they have to deal with the planning plus requirement stage. Okay, so what happens in the planning plus requirement stage? It's a one of the fundamental stages, because it's a starting stage of your software development lifecycle. And your product owner or your business analyst or your senior members can also get involved. They get the input from the customers. So let's say example.com is already live to the customers, so you have to gather your feedback from the customers, what your customers are feeling. Okay, are your customers are feeling, if you launch a kids catalog, is it useful for them? If they are thinking, if you have 10 customers and you are looking at potential customers, another 15-20 members, and if nobody is interested in the kids catalog, then it's of no use to launch. So what you can do is you can suspend the idea at this stage only. You do not have to propagate this idea to the all the other stages. So that's why planning and requirement is one of the most important stage. Okay, when I say requirement, what you have to do in terms of requirements, you have to gather the requirements. Let's say, again, the same example, you have 10 customers today and potential customers are 15 to 20. What you have to do is, even in the kits, what are your customers are interested? Are they interested in the kits range between 6 to 12? Are they interested in the kits range from 1 to 4 years? So you have to get this information, like how many customers are interested in this one, how many customers are interested in this one. Once you have this collective information, that phase is called planning and requirements phase. Once you come up with this planning and requirement phase, then you can start with the defining and designing phase. Okay, so in terms of defining requirements, what you do is that you clearly define these requirements in terms of documents. Okay, no. What do you mean by documents? So in terms of documents, you have to write, whether let's say your product owner is there, or your business analyst who is talking to your customer, somebody, what they have decided is that, okay, I did a customer research, and on my customer research, I understood that 6 to 12 years, 4 customers are interested, 1 to 4 years, 16 customers are interested. Now, what they'll do is that they will write a document that is called as software requirement specification document. Okay, so in software requirement specification document, they would provide all their data that they have collected as part of the planning phase. After that, we will move to the designing phase. Okay, so designing phase is very critical phase, because in designing phase, you will do high level design and low level design. Okay, so what is high level design? HLD and LLD. So HLD and LLD, let's say you have an architect, okay, or you have a team leader or a senior resource. What these members will do is they will write a high level design. On the high level design, you will be talking about the overall, your system has to be scalable, or whenever there is a requirement, this kits catalog have to be scalable to probably there might be more load for the kids catalog during Christmas. So you have to build your kids catalog application in such a way that it is scalable when required, or it is highly available. So these things you will define in HLD. You might say that, I want to use this kind of database, I want to use n number of replicas of my application. So such things are defined in the high level design. And coming to the low level design, your architect, or again your senior member of the team, the development team, what they would do is they would write the low level design requirements. That is, okay, let's use this particular functions, or let's use this particular modules. Let's say your organization is using Java or Python. So in the low level design, the senior members of the team would design the systems in such a way. They would mention that, okay, I want to use SQL data, my SQL database. I want to call from this application. I want to make a function call. So all those this it has to pass such an argument. It has to receive such response. So these kind of things you would mention in the low level design. That is very low, extremely low level design. Perfect. So now you understood what is planning and requirement, you understood what is defining phase, you understood what is designing phase, and then what we'll do is we will move to the components that are most important for DevOps engineers. Okay, so till this point of time, as a DevOps engineer, you can get involved out of your personal interest, but where your actual importance would come into picture is these three phases. That is building the software, testing the software, and deploying the software. And as a DevOps engineer, you can automate these processes. Okay, so our focus of interest always is automation. So that's why here you can bring in your automation. So which phases of software development lifecycle are DevOps centric, or a DevOps engineer should be interested in? That are building phase, testing phase, and deployment phase. No, I'm not saying that you should not get involved in the designing, defining, or the planning phase. Let's say you are a critical resource of your team, or you are a DevOps engineer who is development in heart. Okay, probably you are also interested in development and DevOps engineer. In such cases, you can get involved in all of these phases, but primarily as a DevOps engineer, your point of interest or your focus of interest should always be these three things. That is building a software, testing a software, and deploying the software. So what I'll do is we'll take these three phases in the next slide and we'll try to understand each of them in detailed. Okay, we'll come back to this slide again. But before that, let's try to understand these phases in detail. That is building, then you have testing, and finally you have deployment. Okay, so these are the three phases: building phase, testing phase, and deployment phase. Let's try to understand each of them in detail and how can a DevOps engineer can improve the efficiency of these phases. We'll also take a look at that. Okay, first of all, building the software. What do I mean by building? So in this case, building is nothing but developing. Okay, so once your senior members of the team have come up with uh, a low level design and the high level design, let's say, and your product owner and business analyst have come up with the planning requirements and software requirement document. Okay, what is the next thing that you have to do is this application has to be developed, right? So all your stories are created, all the documents are written. Now you have to move to the next stage, that is developing, right? So okay, all the things are done, you spoke to the customers, you got all the requirements, your design documents are ready. So it comes to the developers, and what these developers will do, they'll start writing the application code in their favorite language or the language that is used within your organization. So this phase is called as developing phase. So what happens in the developing phase? Probably the your developer, he will read the Jira items, or he will read the uh, documents that are prepared, and he'll start writing the code. Okay, so let's say he start writing the code, and what he'll do is once he writes the code, he'll push this to a common location in the organization. So most of the organizations these days use Git. If you don't know about Git, don't worry, we'll talk about Git in the future, but for now just understand it's as a source code repository. That is a repository that is storing all the code. Why you need a source code repository? Because it cannot be only with this one developer, right? So this is a developer laptop, but you have to always uh, share this code within the other members of the team. So that's why you store them in a source code repository, that is a centralized repository or a distributed repository. So for example, in this case I choose Git. So now the developer wrote the code, he got it reviewed by his peer members. Okay, so peer members are nothing but other members of the team, and finally he pushed the code to the Git. Okay, now this is done. This phase is called as a developing phase. Once this is done, what you have to do, the next phase would be testing this application, right? So let's say a developer said that it is working fine on my server. Would everybody believe it? No. End goal has to be to deliver a prompt and a quality code to the customer. So that's why it has to go to the testing phase. So this phase is called testing phase. So what happens in the testing phase? This application that is stored in the Git repository, that is taken and deployed in a server. And then you have a team in the organization that is called QE team. Who are this QE team? They are the quality assurance engineers. Okay. So quality assurance engineers, they basically take care of testing the software. So here the developers has built the software, QE has tested the software. Okay, so this phase is primarily for developers. This phase is primarily for QE engineers. And then there is a deployment phase. What happens in the deployment phase? On the deployment, in the deployment phase, you basically promote this application to the production. Okay, so here you are testing in a virtual server that can be uh, like any staging server or your development server or anything, but finally you push it to a production server, right? Who is receiving this in the production server? Your customer. So this is the entire things that happen in a software development lifecycle. Now you have to ask me, okay, I learned about everything. You said this is used by developers, this is used by QA. Now where is DevOps coming into picture? So all these three things, okay, even if you remember in our last class, what we thought, what we learned in the last class is that a DevOps is nothing but it's just a culture. Okay, so where DevOps comes into picture is improving the organization's efficiency. Now, developer has written the code, he stored it in his local repository, okay, and finally he pushed it to the Git repository. Here the testers are testing the code, and here you are moving the application to the production. So DevOps engineer basically fastens this process, right? So he improves the process to deliver the code quickly, okay, and by ensuring all of these terms are matched, okay. A DevOps engineer ensures that the building, testing, and the deployment processes are followed without any manual intervention. That is, everything happens in a automated way. Okay. So everything is automated. Efficiency, right? Just a second. Is there any problem with my speaker? Okay. I'm not sure if the last sentence was overheard or I see some error with the speaker. But just to repeat, so what a DevOps engineer does, he fastens the process. Okay. By fastening the process, he means that DevOps engineer would automate the process. Okay. What happens with automation? Always automation will lead to efficiency, right? If you are doing a very good automation, it is always directly proportional to the efficiency of your product delivery. So that's why DevOps engineer comes into the picture. So, if we go back to this specific slide, a DevOps engineer is primarily responsible for automating these three phases of your software development lifecycle. So that's why it is very important and essential for everybody to understand software development lifecycle, whether you are a DevOps engineer, a developer, tester, or anyone, because in an organization, you all work together, right? When you're working together as a team, you have to follow a certain standard. So that standard is called software development lifecycle. And because we are focused in DevOps and because we are learning DevOps in these classes, you have to understand that a DevOps engineer is primarily focused in building, testing, deployment, automation, right? So DevOps engineer is not individually involved in building because he does not develop the software. He does not test the software. He does not deploy the software. Everything happens automatically, right? So manually, you are not going to deploy this software in production. So you are going to, as a DevOps engineer, you are going to automate and write these automation scripts so that it improves the efficiency and reduces the time by avoiding manual intervention. So now I hope the software development lifecycle is clear to you. And finally, if we go back to this slide, all this process can be done in different ways. Okay. So if we are talking about the project management, there are different things like there is a waterfall model, there is iterative model, there is agile model. So what are these models we learn during our project management classes? So there is a project management class, but on a high level, you have to understand that every organization these days is using a agile methodology. So in agile methodology, what happens is you follow all of these phases, but you do it agile. Like, you take short sprints. That is, you don't wait till all of your planning is done, or you don't wait all of your define or design documents is done. Once a small chunk of it is done, you start with all of this process, and then the other chunk is done. You again follow this entire circle. That is called agile. But we are not going into depth of these concepts at this point of time. So the primary idea of this class is everybody should understand the concept of software development lifecycle and how DevOps engineers are important for the software development lifecycle. Okay, I hope it is clear. And if tomorrow in any interview questions, if somebody is asking you what are the pillars of software development lifecycle, and as a DevOps engineer, which components or which pillars are you interested, you would essentially say these are the pillars of software development lifecycle. These are the things. And as a DevOps engineer, I'm primarily focused on automating and improving the efficiency of building, testing, and the deployment phase. Okay, so I hope this is clear to you, and this is everything that someone has to learn about the software development lifecycle. And whether you are doing it on cloud, whether you are doing it on premises, everybody follows the same standard because it's a standard that is approved and accepted by wide, I mean, throughout the industry. Okay, so in case you have any questions, you can put those questions in the comment section, and you all know that I promptly reply to each and every comment. And in case you have any questions that you cannot put in the comment section, you can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. And finally, there is a small request. If you feel that there are people who want to learn DevOps for free and they don't know about our channel, so please take out some time to share these videos with those people. You can just share our channel link with them, or you can share this video link with them, so that everybody who is willing to learn DevOps for free will be benefited out of these videos, and everybody knows that that is our primary intention. Okay, so if you like the video, click on the like button. If you have any questions, do post them in the comment, or if you have any feedback, whether it is good or bad, please put that in the comment section. And finally, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, don't forget to subscribe our channel, Abhishek Virmalla. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next video. Take care, everyone. Bye.